There are moments when everything shifts, when the world you know gets pulled out from under you without warning. For Evelyn Brooks, that moment came with a phone call, a call that would change her life forever. She had just gotten out of bed, her body heavy with the kind of grief that had kept her in a fog for months. Julian, her husband of 8 years, was gone in an instant, and nothing felt the same. It was hard to even remember what life had been like before he died. The house, once filled with the warmth of his laugh, now echoed with silence. Evelyn's world was small now, quieter. But then the phone rang. "Hello?" she answered, her voice flat. "Hey, Evelyn," said Lila Pierce, her younger sister. "Next Sunday's Oscar's first birthday. I'd love for you to come." Evelyn hesitated, the invitation a sharp reminder of everything she'd missed. She hadn't even seen Oscar in months, barely knew him. How could she face everyone after what had happened? But something about it, something in Lila's voice pulled her in. "I'll think about it," Evelyn replied, her voice distant. She knew she had to make a choice. She couldn't keep hiding. She set the phone down, staring at the space where Julian's mug still sat, untouched. The invitation felt like a lifeline and a weight all at once. Could she really step back into the world she had shut out? The days after Lila's call felt heavy, like I was carrying the weight of everything. I hadn't seen Oscar since he was a newborn, and now he was turning 1. I should have been a bigger part of his life, but it was easier to hide, to stay away from everyone, especially from Lila. I thought about it for days. Should I go? Should I even try? I hadn't been to one of their family events in months, maybe longer. The pain of losing Julian was still too raw, too real. But something about Lila's voice when she asked me to come, it wasn't demanding or forceful. It was hopeful. I needed a reason to keep going. So I went. On the day of the party, I wandered through town, looking for a gift. It felt like I was going through the motions, like nothing mattered, but I ended up in a jewelry shop, staring at a sterling silver dinnerware set. It wasn't extravagant, but it felt like the kind of gift Julian would have picked out for a baby. I wanted it to mean something, even though it felt like nothing did anymore. I held the gift in my hands, knowing I was walking into a room full of people who didn't know me, who didn't know what I was carrying. I didn't know how I'd make it through the day, but I was going to try. I should have turned around when I got to Lila's house, but I didn't. My feet just kept moving, one step after another, until I was standing at her front door. I wasn't ready for this. Hell, I wasn't sure I ever would be. But I rang the doorbell anyway. Lila opened the door with that smile of hers, bright and flawless, like nothing was wrong, like everything was perfect. "Evelyn, you made it." She stepped aside to let me in, her hands brushing my shoulders as she passed me. I followed her into the living room, where people were laughing and talking, like it was any other Sunday afternoon. I felt out of place instantly, like I was wearing the wrong skin. I hugged the walls as I walked past clusters of people, unsure of where to go. Lila grabbed the gift bag from my hand. "Ooh, what did you bring? Let me put it over here." She waved her hand toward the pile of presents, already 10 feet high. It felt silly, like my gift didn't matter. "Just a little something," I muttered. But she didn't even look at me when she took the bag and disappeared into the crowd. I wanted to leave. I wanted to be anywhere but here, but I couldn't make myself move. So I stayed. I watched the crowd from across the room, the laughter blending together in a low hum. Everyone looked so happy, so whole. I didn't belong here. Not anymore. Not after everything. Lila was chatting with a group of friends near the kitchen, her laugh too loud, too carefree. I could hear the clink of glasses, the rustle of wrapping paper. Everything about this party felt like a performance. Everyone else was in on the act. But I wasn't. I looked down at my hands, gripping the edge of my drink a little too tightly, like it could anchor me to the floor. Oscar's first birthday. A year gone by, and I had barely seen him. My nephew. I couldn't even remember the last time I'd held him. Maybe when he was a baby, too young to even notice I wasn't around. Maybe he didn't know me at all. I didn't notice her approach until she was standing right in front of me. Lila, looking every bit the picture-perfect hostess, her face glowing with that smile that never reached her eyes when she looked at me. Evelyn, she greeted, too chipper, too rehearsed. So glad you could make it. Come join us. She gestured vaguely at the others, but I knew better. She was more interested in the gift I'd brought, the one she'd barely glanced at. I forced a smile. I'll just stay here for a bit, I said, trying to sound casual, but it came out hollow. Oh, you're sure? Come on, Oscar's going to wake up soon and you need to meet him. The way she said Matt felt like a jab, like a reminder that I had missed out. I nodded. Later. I muttered. I wasn't ready. Not yet. I should have known something was off. The air had changed the moment Lila grabbed the microphone. I don't know why I stayed in the corner, clutching my drink like it was my lifeline, but I did. I don't think I could have moved even if I wanted to. Lila tapped her glass with a spoon, her voice cutting through the hum of conversation. Excuse me, everyone, can I have your attention for a moment? The chatter faded. All eyes turned to her. She had that look in her eyes, the one that meant she was about to drop a bomb. I should have known, but I couldn't have imagined what she'd say next. I'm so happy to be here today, celebrating my little boy's first birthday, Lila said, smiling wide. The guests clapped. It felt rehearsed, like she was acting for an audience. And I have something very important to share with all of you. I felt my stomach twist. My hands were suddenly cold. I hadn't even realized I stopped breathing. She paused, looking straight at me. And in that moment, everything went still. I've kept this a secret for far too long, she continued. But today, I think it's time everyone knew the truth. Oscar's real father is Julian Brooks, Evelyn's husband. I swear the room went silent for a second too long. No one moved. Not even me. I couldn't breathe. I forced myself to speak, but my voice barely made it out. What? No. My words felt weak. Lila stood there, still smiling. I'm sorry, Evelyn. But Oscar is Julian's son, and he deserves his inheritance. I felt like I was being crushed under the weight of her words. My mind raced. Julian, my husband. She was lying. She had to be. But the room was quiet. Too quiet, as everyone waited for me to react. I couldn't think, couldn't move. This couldn't be real. I stammered. But no words came. Lila's smile never wavered. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream, to tell Lila she was lying, but I couldn't get the words out. Everything felt too heavy, like I was sinking into the floor. My eyes darted around the room, searching for someone to step in, to say something. But no one did. I turned to my parents, my heart pounding. George and Charlotte, who had always been my foundation, looked. Lost. They stood by, completely silent. I couldn't tell if they were stunned or just too ashamed to say anything. Mom, I whispered, but she didn't even look at me. She was staring down at her glass, fingers gripping it tight, like she was afraid to face me. I glanced at my father, hoping for something. Anything. Dad, I said, my voice breaking, but he just gave me that tired, defeated look, the one that said everything without saying anything. He knew. The words came slowly, almost as if they were dragged out of me. You knew. My chest tightened as I spoke. You knew. And you didn't say anything. Charlotte hesitated, then met my eyes, and I saw it, the guilt. It washed over her face. The regret too late to matter. She opened her mouth, but there was nothing left to say. The silence between us felt like it had lasted forever, even though it was just a few seconds. Lila was still watching, that awful smile plastered on her face. She didn't need to say anything else. The damage was already done. I left the party before anyone could say anything more. Before I could say anything more. The air outside was cold, biting at my skin, but it felt good, like a slap to the face that I needed. I didn't even know where I was going at first. Just driving. Away from that house. Away from the lies. My mind was a mess of thoughts, all of them tangled together. I couldn't focus. I kept hearing Lila's voice in my head, over and over, telling everyone that Oscar was Julian's son. How could she do that? How could she lie like that and get away with it? I couldn't let her win. I couldn't just sit there and let her destroy everything Julian and I had built. That's when I made the decision. I called Nathaniel Grant, the lawyer. I didn't even have his number saved, but I remembered it from when Julian's business had gotten complicated a few years ago. Nathaniel was the best in town, but I hadn't wanted to use him. Not for this. Not for my family. But I had no choice. Hello? His voice was calm, steady, like he was already expecting me to call. Nathaniel, I said, my voice rough. I need your help. I'm about to be dragged into a legal battle over Julian's estate. I could hear him pause on the other end, but then he spoke. I'll help you. I'll make sure you get the truth. Something inside me settled a little. Maybe, just maybe, this wasn't the end. The courtroom was cold, too cold, and the air was thick with tension. I hadn't been inside a place like this before, and I could feel my nerves gnawing at me with each step I took. Nathaniel was beside me, his presence reassuring, but not enough to calm the storm inside me. Lila was already there, sitting across the room, her usual confident smile now replaced by a quiet, determined expression. She looked like she owned the place. Behind her, her lawyer was scribbling notes, already working on the next move. It didn't matter. She wasn't going to get away with this. Not if I had anything to say about it. The judge entered, and the room grew still. As he took his seat, I tried to steady my breathing. I'd been living with this anger, this overwhelming need for justice, for weeks now. But now, in the courtroom, I wasn't just fighting for myself. I was fighting for Julian's memory, for our life together, and for Oscar, not the child Lila had claimed him to be, but the one she tried to steal from me. The hearing started. Nathaniel stood, speaking in his calm, authoritative way, presenting our case. The plaintiff, he began, referring to Lila's claim, is attempting to leverage falsified evidence to challenge the rightful heir to Mr. Brooks's estate. The words felt so cold, so clinical, but they were true. The photos, the messages, everything Lila had shown the guests at the party was a lie. There was no way Julian could have fathered Oscar. I knew it. And now the world would too. Then it was Lila's turn. She stood up, her face a picture of feigned sorrow. Her voice was steady as she began, telling her fabricated story of love and betrayal. My stomach turned as she painted herself as the grieving lover who had been forced to hide her love for Julian. She was good at it, playing the part to perfection. I clenched my fists under the table, fighting back the urge to stand and shout that she was lying, but I stayed still. I had to. Nathaniel had everything we needed. We just had to wait. And then he did it. He laid down the bombshell. Your Honor, Nathaniel said, looking directly at the judge. We have medical records that prove Mr. Brooks was incapable of fathering children due to a condition known as azoospermia. The room went silent. I felt a weight lift off my chest. The truth was finally coming out. The silence in the courtroom was suffocating. Lila's lawyer shifted uncomfortably in his seat, flipping through his notes, clearly caught off guard. I could feel the eyes of everyone on me. like the room had shrunk, all attention focusing on the truth Nathaniel had just dropped. The judge looked from me to Lila, then back at the medical records Nathaniel had handed over. He didn't say anything at first, just adjusted his glasses and ran his fingers over the papers, absorbing the weight of what had been revealed. I held my breath. Finally, the judge spoke, his voice calm but firm. "Based on these results," he said, glancing up, "it's clear that Mr. Brooks could not have fathered a child. This evidence is sufficient to dismiss the plaintiff's claims." Lila's face froze, her confident expression shattered. I watched her mouth open, but no words came out. She just stared, blinking rapidly as if trying to process what had just happened. I exhaled, my heart pounding. The fight wasn't over, but it was close. Lila's lies had been exposed, and the truth, the one Julian and I had shared, was finally being heard. I could feel the shift. The courtroom, the world was no longer working against me. The court case was over. The truth had come out. Lila's lies had been exposed, her manipulation revealed for everyone to see. The weight that had hung over Evelyn's heart for so long started to lift. The battle was won, but the war had left scars that wouldn't fade overnight. As she walked away from the courthouse, Evelyn felt lighter, but there was still so much to process. The victory wasn't what she expected. She didn't feel triumphant, just tired. She didn't rush home. Instead, she drove, her hands gripping the steering wheel tightly as she headed for the house she and Julian had shared, the house that had once been a home, but now felt more like a tomb. She sold it. The house was gone. The memories packed away in boxes, ready to be forgotten. But she didn't let it go without making something meaningful of it. She put the money toward something that felt right. She set up a charity for children, for those who didn't get the chance to be children, for those who needed a second chance. And then there was Beatrice. Her mother-in-law, Beatrice Campbell, who had stood by Evelyn in the darkest hours, was now her anchor. Together, they found a quiet place away from the chaos of the family, away from the betrayal. Evelyn could breathe now. She had made it through the storm, and for the first time in a long time, she felt the peace of knowing she had a future she would build on her own terms.